Hello. Today we're going to read a hi. Today I'll be reading you a new creepypasta. So get ready to get scared. Because the fear is about to start and you cannot escape it. It's coming for you all. A figure in gray. If you've spent any length of time in the United States, you owe it to yourself to play the 1958 arcade classic Paperboy. In it, you assume the role of a preteen boy tasked with completing his daily paper route. For whatever reason, your hero's beat is a particularly rough neighborhood. Its streets teem with aggressive drivers who would rather hit the cyclists than their brakes. On the sidewalk, bratty children steer kamikaze RC cars into passengers, modern-day drone planes in their larval form. Elsewhere, skateboarding adrenaline junkies find their greatest thrills in demolishing live obstacles like your Paperboy. In some cases, your character will be accosted by a knife-wielding madman who comes charging at his house, pursues at tremendous speed, never catching your hero and robbing him of precious life. Taken as a whole, the game makes for an effective satire on Reagan-era America. It captures the needless paranoia of the suburbs, where people fear the harm some strangers' informed power will inflict on them, without releasing the vanity in all senses of the word. Behind such a phobia, it shows the violence and cruelty of average America, percolating behind the facade of white picket fences and well-maintained lawns. Most importantly, it reveals how far people will go to make a buck, or be compelled to go for socioeconomic reasons beyond their control. It would be troubling to consider these situations if the game didn't make it all so dang funny. I'm paraphrasing, they didn't say dang. Odds are you will laugh too much while playing to think about many of the concerns the game raises. Perhaps it succeeds too well its own satirical objectives. You'd be forgiven for assuming that the same merry cynicism found in Paperboy would carry over to its 1990s console system sequel, Paperboy 2. Indeed, the second entry in the series contains every bit as much unnecessary peril and consequent weird humor as the first. You guide your choice of Paperboy or girl through a suburban gauntlet featuring a whole new cast of memorable hostiles. A hermit holed up in a moat-ringed castle bards you with cannon fire as you pass. Overzealous guard dogs chase you down the street. Roasting pigs knocking off the spin of a misfired newspaper do the same. Evidently being grilled alive before your intervention, and none too happy with your interference. Runaway baby carriages, in a nod to the overpopulation worries of the modern world, mow you down if you are not attentive enough. Scarecrows, once hit with paper, break up their stakes and ambush you. One hand raised in a fascist salute in a while. And the absurdity in Paperboy 2 runs high thanks to the game's colorful cast, although perhaps colorful is not the right word. As you play throughout the opening stages of Paperboy 2, you'll notice one character who does not seem to belong, for he is literally and figuratively anything but colorful. He will first catch your eye because his palette without color. He's the only person in the game rendered entirely in monochrome. He wears a gray suit. His neat and unremarkable black hair. His stark white skin, however, is especially arising, given the more colorful flesh tones seen everywhere else in game. His actions, too, are completely bland. If left undisturbed, the gray figure simply walks down his driveway, disposes his trash can at the curb, then turns around and walks back to his house. If struck with a paper, he only freezes in his tracks. No attacks, no surprises. He is shockingly mundane in this world of cannons and mobile scarecrows. If you have some knowledge of 90s news crises, you might be able to excavate the unusual case of one Dennis R. from your memory banks. Assuming the national news outlets had the story straight and reported it accordingly, Mr. R. was an actuary, or some specialist whose profession hinges on unchanged yet suspicious assumption that the future will be like the past, who woke up one night, dismembered his infant twin sons and his wife of 8 years, and brought their remains to the curb in a metal garbage can alongside all the other refuse of suburban life. The mechanical arm of the waste collection truck did not detect the can's abnormal weight, and the landfill, too, was none the wiser. It was entirely possible that nobody would have noticed the absence of Mrs. R. and her children at the local library not begun to seek suspicion for their long overdue books that Mrs. R. never had a chance to return. Alas, Mr. R. was never properly sentenced, as he was killed in prison by other inmates before his trial could even be finished. Recalling the story, you might begin to sense the resemblance between the late Mr. R. and the figure in gray. Indeed, after a courtesy image search on his photograph on the internet, you'd be impressed by how uncanny the likeness of a few pixels can produce. You might even begin to suspect that the satire of Paperboy series is alive and well in the second installment. Here the game designers had given you a world of crime and violence and fright, yet the most horrible thing in it is something as innocent as a man taking out his trash. Here all the paranoia, suburban suburbanite. Here, all the paranoia suburbanites target a kid on a bicycle as if he or she posed an actual threat, while the real danger lurks next door. You might suspect that Paperboy 2 is a satire of complacency, where prosperity and habit ensure the average American against diligence and introspection. Where the idealized image of suburb discourages its residents for looking beyond the glistening veneer of civilization and scrutinizing themselves or others. Even you, the attentive player, were fooled. Did you think to inspect the gray figure's garbage can for pixelated limbs? Of course not. Why would you? The world you find yourself in does little to suggest you have. Therefore, through the inclusion of this nonchalant figure in gray, the game makes you complicit in the poisonous mindset that suburban America incubates. A mature cliche indeed for such an early video game. Yet if you were to praise the developers of Paperboy 2 for their clever stunt, none of them would take credit for it. None of them would admit to drawing or programming the figure in gray. In fact, none of them will remember putting him into the game. And that was a figure in gray. I almost didn't know what to do for today's video, but then I remembered. Oh yeah, I'm doing a Creepypasta. So, what'd you think? Were you terrified? Did you hate the fact that I kept screwing up words and stuff? I did. It really took me out of it. I was trying to get into it, but it took me out of it. In fact, as I was reading the ending, I was like, wait, I don't get it. Why is it scary? Oh, they don't remember putting him in the game, but he haunts the game. I didn't get it. I was so out of it at that moment because I was out of the scariness of it all because I kept screwing up the words and stuff. How can I be scared? So at that point, it wasn't scary as much as lame. So, sleep tight tonight, dear children. I pray you don't have a copy of Paperboy 2. Actually, I wonder if that's real. I wonder if there actually is a gray man in that game, and if the developers don't know anything about it. Could this be a real story? Wow. I guess it's up to you to decide. Investigate. Figure out if the game really is haunted. Happy Halloween! Good night!